All right, hello everyone in History Land. Mr. Porter here. It is Thursday, and we're starting into Unit 9, and we're really going forward now, starting past 1945, and going from 1945 to the present, really. Because there's really just four items in the vocabulary today, and they all have to do, well, for the most part, with the Cold War. The Cold War was a war, if you will, that was fought pretty much on the sidelines between the United States and the Soviet Union. Between 1945 and I want to say about 1991, 1992, with the fall of the Soviet Union. And it wasn't a hot war. There's a difference between a Cold War and a hot war. A hot war is one that's actually fought on the battlefield, you know, firing bullets at each other. Where a Cold War is one of spying, one of espionage, that sort of thing. Trying to plant spies in high positions in the governments, that sort of thing. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about this. We're getting into the atomic age. We've talked about the atomic bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end World War II, to get the Japanese to surrender. And the atomic bomb has to do with atomic fission, and actually it's kind of weird how the first atomic bomb actually worked, because it was armed, if you will, and I use that in air quotes. It was armed up, you know, at 45, 50,000 feet. You know, when they were flying, and then when they dropped the bomb, when it got to a certain point, a certain altitude, coming back down, there was a trigger mechanism that that released the radioactive I believe the uranium into another cylinder of the bomb. That started the chain reaction to have the nuclear explosion, and that's essentially what happened. And of course, there were two of them, the one in Hiroshima and the one on Nagasaki. There was supposed to be another one, a third one. I've actually met the pilot of that third plane that was supposed to take the third bomb. The bomb got as far as San Francisco. But fortunately, the Japanese surrendered, so they didn't have to use it on the third target. We don't even know what the third target was. They didn't know. That was for the higher-ups to decide if there would be a third target. The hydrogen bomb was a little different because it was mainly with the use of hydrogen as the I guess as the accelerant, and it was much more destructive than the first atomic bomb. But with today's technology, and we talk about the different technological advancements, with today's technology, it's back to the basic using the uranium for the atomic weaponry, and the amount of destructive power is literally thousands of times more destructive than what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. People don't understand that. They thought, well, you know, once you have an atomic weapon, it's the same destructive power. Well, no, it's not. They're much more destructive today than they were then, and it's because of technology, of course. The space race really started with the United States getting a lot of the missile technology that had been fathered in Nazi Germany. And part of that, part of those scientists were captured by the Soviet Union. Part of them were captured by the Americans. And it ended up being not only a race for missiles being fired at each other, but a race to space. They call it the space race as well. The Soviets were first into space. They fired a satellite called Sputnik. And there were another couple of Sputniks that went up as well before the U.S. even got into space. It seemed like it was a comedy of errors for the United States. They could not lift the payloads up off the launching pads. A lot of destruction. But the United States created what was referred to as NASA, or the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, still around today. If you go to Cape Kennedy, I was just there over spring break. If you go to the Kennedy Space Center and on Cape Canaveral, they have a whole bunch of stuff. They have a thing that that tells you about the Apollo moonshots. They have a separate building for that, and then you actually get to see the mock-up of the control room for Apollo, for the Apollo moonshots. Is pretty cool. But also for the space shuttles, they actually have the space shuttle Atlantis, sort of, at an angle, so that you can actually see the bottom. You can see into the bay, and that was amazing. You could see where the heat shield had, where the heat from re-entry into the atmosphere had caused the high temperatures and that on the bottom. It's amazing stuff. But anyway, it really wasn't until they got Werner von Braun, who was one of those German scientists who really was at the forefront of German technology. He helped the Americans with the technology for the Saturn V rocket. We did put men into space eventually. In fact, at first it was Alan Shepard, and he just went up and came back down. Didn't orbit the Earth. John Glenn did a few months later. He actually orbited the Earth, and at the same time, the Russians were sending up space missions as well, and we were keeping track of each other and seeing what the other was doing. But excuse me, it was President Kennedy, President John F. Kennedy, that said his goal, or the goal of the American people, was to put a man on the moon before the decade was out, in other words, before 1970, and returning them safely to Earth. And they did that with Apollo 11. And then, at that same time that Apollo 11 was landing on the Earth, there was a flight of the Soviets that was going to the moon at the same time. It was more of a spy mission, okay? And they ended up crashing. They were trying to get closer and closer and closer to where the United States team was, and it ended up crashing and burning. So, but anyway, they ended up, and several others went after that. There were a number. They had that issue with Apollo 13 where there was a problem with one of the oxygen sensors or something to that effect. There was a problem with with that, and that caused the explosion to have the entire problem that they had with Apollo 13. And actually, they figured out what it was, they fixed it, they remedied it. They realized that the lunar excursion module, the LIM, that lands on the moon was very versatile. And they found that out because they had to use the lunar excursion module, or the LIM. That was their lifeboat, essentially, for Apollo 13. But anyway, many more went, and of course, NASA went into the space shuttle business. Unfortunately, ended up in tragedy not only for the Challenger, but also for the Columbia. The Challenger was actually on launch, it exploded, and the Columbia actually disintegrated on re-entry. Crazy stuff. And then, of course, technological advances during this time. TV came into existence. It really hit big in about 1948 and continued to explode. Color TVs in the 60s. And, of course, we went to plasma TVs, and then to LED TVs, which we have today with the flat screens. In fact, even 8,000 8K HD, you know, it's just super sharp, super crisp. Computers were created. You know, I am in my classroom, and just imagine a computer the size of my classroom. Okay, that's the size of the computer that they had in our at our college, at my college, the University of Utah, when I was going there. It was a big IBM setup. If you guys have seen the movie Hidden Figures, that's a small version. That was a small version of what they had available. Okay, it was actually in the engineering building there at the University of Utah. And if anybody wanted to do computer work, they had to go to the engineering building, and you had to essentially code what they called IBM cards. They were little, I guess, cards that were maybe about 8 inches long and about, maybe 4 inches wide, 3.5 inches wide. And they were just little it was like cardstock. And you would punch little things in it, and it would tabulate. I don't know how it would do it, but it's a lot different than today, right? You know, you have more power in your phones, in your telephones, more computing power in your telephones than the computer in that building that was the size of my classroom here had. Jet airplanes as well ended up with planes that could go faster than the speed of sound. In fact, it was interesting with that thing on Top Gun Maverick with him trying to fly that plane at Mach 10. Nobody's reached that other than on a space flight. As far as planes are concerned, I think 7.3 is the fastest any plane has gone. And I believe that was the SR-71 Blackbird. So, you know, this Mach 10 was that was science fiction. Let's put it that way. Okay. All right. Now, what we have other than that for today, well, I've got 3 videos. One is on duck and cover. When I was in school, we had all of these things for duck and cover, just in case a bomb. I mean, we were 20 miles from ground zero. There was an Army base out there, a major training base on the West Coast. You know, duck and cover wouldn't have helped very much. We all would have been dead. But a video on that is pretty funny, you know, when you think about it now. And another two videos, really. One is about the Cold War. It's part one, and then the Cold War part two. And then the assignment for today has to do with technology timelines. And guys, what I want you to do, and I'm going to pull this up and just talk about it a little bit. It's about technological advances for both the United States and the Soviet Union. Guys, I do not want you to go earlier than 1945, okay? It seems like every time somebody turns one of these in, they go back to the beginning of the United States, you know, back to 1776. No, started at 1945. The same for the Soviet Union. I've got two sides to it. One side has the United States on the far left, start at 1945, and all the technology, all the advances in technology past then. You can probably, you should be able to look it up on Google very easily. And the same with the Soviet Union. Start at 1945 and then go forward in time. I would end it right at about 1990 for both 1991, 92 for both of them. I give you, if I remember right, I don't have it real close, but anyway, I do have it. You know, on one side is the United States, the other side is the Soviet Union. So start at 1945 and then go forward from there for both the United States and the Soviet Union. Okay, and I think that is pretty much it. This is only to be done today on Thursday. I am actually going to put it on. I'm going to put Thursdays and Friday both on Thursday because I will not have the availability of a secure Wi-Fi connection through the time that I'll be gone. So this will be for today. On Friday, you do Fridays. Okay, Friday will already be on there. Do not do it until Friday. That is your mission to do. If people come into class and they don't have anything to do, that will tell and I'm going to leave a note for them, telling them that you are not supposed to do anything for Friday until Friday. And so when you come in on Friday, you do Friday's work. You will watch Friday's video. All right? So you guys take care. We will see you in the next video for tomorrow, which would be Friday. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.